they should have notified the people, if it was dangerous.
Dorothy Kushner's husband worked for U.S. Steel for 43 years. He died 6 years ago of cancer. She speaks for a number of those affected. Many are left with unanswered questions about the company and about the government.
I don't think so they knew that time. I don't know. I don't. Or maybe they knew but didn't tell us. That's for sure.
But U.S. Steel is not alone. Armor Mines near Crosby is also on the list. The consumer group Public Citizen is warning anyone who worked at the plant or mines to see a doctor. But physicians with the Duluth clinic say there's no rush.
We as physicians, 20 years after the exposure, are not going to be able to do a lot of things to change what ultimately happens to them over time.
Still, doctors say it's a good idea to come in for a checkup, even if you didn't work for U.S. Steel or the Armor Mines. Experts say there is a slight chance those residents who live near the areas could also be affected. In Duluth,
normally, main breaks aren't all that rare or uncommon. We had our first main break last week, but that was on a relatively small supply line, a 2-inch line, which affected just a handful of residents. But this, due to the proximity to the water tower here, we have no way to isolate this one, and consequently, the whole town is without water.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny, but anyway.
Has changed, and there is a strong recognition both at the national level as well as at the state level that we
very much for coming in today, Skip. Growing crime,
the nature of the violence, particularly the youthful violence that is taking place, I think has changed, and there is a strong recognition both at the national level as well as at the state level that we have to take action to reform the juvenile justice system, and that's what's going to be the focus of this next legislative session.
I think probably not. I know that there is a sentencing. Then they could send their prisoners to these federal prisons. Passing out these drugs, it practically is like murder. So something like that. And varied. They're not so varied, but they're many anyway. We need mandatory minimum sentences for felonies. We need truth in sentencing. That is, if you're sentenced to 10 years, you serve 10 years. You don't serve 2 years or something like that. So often we hear that the average sentence for all crimes in the country is about 8 years, and the average time served is about 2 years. Here's the problem.
So on. Another unique thing we have is we offer flex time for a lot of students. We have people from Grand Rapids presently. We have, like I said, we have people.
Expansion itself indicates that we're doing something right. We're contributing to the community, and a community that's supporting us in a great fashion. The employees at the Fingerhut facility are terrific. They're committed to our success. It's evident in their productivity. It's evident in the low turnover we are experiencing here.
Well, we thank you very much for coming. It is an exciting day, not just.
I say, if you get to be bigger and bigger, we welcome you to Virginia.
As you drive down the streets of Superior, everything looks to be safe and sound. Unfortunately, that may not be the case.
Juvenile arrests in Wisconsin have increased over 26% since 1988. And juvenile arrests for violent crimes such as murder, forcible rape, robbery, and aggravated assault have shot up by over 93% in that same period of time.
These astonishing figures were released today by Attorney General Jim Doyle and Senator Bob Jauch. The two legislators are holding a town hall meeting tonight at UWS to discuss the problem. Doyle has a $15 million plan to curb crime.
We must allow our juvenile judges to open up juvenile court hearings when it is in the public interest to do so. We must also give our schools access to information about juveniles who may threaten the safe and effective operation of schools.
Doyle's plan would allow each county to decide how to spend its share of the $15 million. He says the money is already in the bank.
There's a surplus of approximately $200 million, but there is $15 million to put into juvenile justice if that's a priority that the legislature wants to set.
Both politicians are hoping that tonight's town hall meeting will help pass the proposal. The legislators should vote on the $15 million issue by the end of March. In Duluth, Chip Wallace, News 6.
Point of fact, veterans, and we intend to preserve the artistic integrity and when we get done here. A couple things that we're excited about: artist perception. Essentially, it is an area dedicated to the memory of veterans, the men and women who have served in the armed forces, both alive, deceased, in foreign wars and domestic. It's a kind of an all-encompassing situation. It's effectively going to stand in it. I don't fathom. We've fallen away from that a little bit, so yes, we're very hopeful. That's one of the main thrusts of what we're doing here. In the Superior area, although I would stress we have a perception of the Hall of Remembrance. And the very end wall, you have kind of a tunnel effect here. The very end wall would be that black granite wall of remembrance that we're talking about. When you look at it, I think it's dramatic. It really says what.
And the phone is ringing off the wall. Uncharacteristically, a lot of interest, more than usual. And so, you know, the facility has the capability to do $100,000 a day if, you know, people really roared in here.
Larry Hutchinson in Spirit Mountain just got done making a $370,000 payment as part of a debt restructuring program. January's 31% drop in revenues due to the extreme temperatures, about $180,000 in actual dollars, was an unwelcomed occurrence.
Every time we had the opportunity, and especially during the times when we were closed because of the cold weather, we were able to cut back on our labor and reduce our costs somewhat.
For the year to date, Spirit Mountain is running approximately $100,000 behind projections. Considering its $3.2 million annual budget, that's not bad. But Spirit Mountain has to make sizable payments to retire a $4.7 million bond issued in 1992 and can't afford to fall behind. Of that $4.7 million, only about $500,000 remains, money that needs to be spent.
Well, we haven't completed the projects that were funded in the bond issue 2 summers ago. You know, the Grand Avenue project and the landscaping around the building. There's a bunch of projects that we're in the middle of developing we just don't have done, so there'll be some ongoing work.
As for the rest of the season, Hutchinson said a good final push could even out this year's receipts, and this coming weekend is considered the busiest ski weekend of the year.
Chicago has been very supportive of these initiatives, and I think
with you and our other colleagues who share this concern about
Mississippi by giving an 1/8 of a cent.
Bring them together, get ideas from them on why they're not using that waterway, what initiatives can be taken to attract them into the seaway, and to acquaint them with the new policy of freezing tolls, rebates, and discounts on shipping goods through the seaway so that we can attract more business through the port, create more jobs here.
And the retention in the general revenues of the nation of Canada.
In Great Lakes Basin, it operates at the disadvantage of the great industrial pennies or half pennies, or often eighth of a
That the nation of Canada should tax it in net effect to operate their portion of the seaway. To me, there's a basic
Would you raise your right hand? I, Irvin N. Anderson.
I, Irvin N. Anderson.
Do solemnly.
State government that responds to their concerns and serves their needs, not the other way around. When someone asks me what my agenda will be for this session, I tell them what I heard in the coffee shops. The people's agenda is my agenda. I invite all the members of this House, the Senate, and the Governor to make it their agenda too.
The legal battle revolves around a last will written by the children's father 6 months before he died. This Minnesota couple, close friends who stood by Schlafer throughout his fight with AIDS, are named as guardians. But Schlafer's mother is fighting for custody, insisting her son's first will directed the children remain with her. The judge agreed, and 5-year-old Natasha and Felicia will remain with their grandmother. After the verdict, an emotional reaction by the couple who claim Schlafer's dying wish is being ignored.
Oh my God, they're our kids. 2 years ago, he asked us to raise them. Our families merged. We've been parenting these girls for 2 years. No matter how you come at a bond with a child, if it's adoption, if it's a gift from a dying parent, if it's biological childbirth, that bond between a parent and a child is the same.
Minnesota is the home state of these children. That's where they were born and raised. There are people there, professionals, teachers, social workers, counselors, doctors that worked with Felicia and Natasha and their father. They can testify best to what's in the best interest of the children.
The children's grandmother, who now has custody, had little to say leaving the courthouse.
Naturally, I would be pleased.
Okay, James, that's it. Plenty. Thank you, son.
So we're writing some letters tonight to the local congressmen, and we're letting them know that enough is enough. We're taxed 3 times higher than almost any other product, and we already pay our fair share.
Back to me. I'll send them out for you. I'll take care of all that.
Should we buy gas from obviously the service station
Can I get everybody's attention for a sec?
This has been going on for a year, and nobody knew it.
What Evelyn Ravel and other residents knew nothing about is this medical waste transfer site, just a few yards off Highway 210 on the Fond du Lac Reservation. They were not alone. Until just a few weeks ago, both Carleton County and tribal officials were also in the dark.
They've been operating basically
illegally.
The company, Medical Safety Systems, hired an independent contractor who travels throughout northern Minnesota gathering medical waste. The waste is brought to the reservation and stored until it can be hauled to Cannon Falls for incineration. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency was notified of the operation. In fact, they issued a permit. But as for Carleton County and tribal officials, they had no idea.
We don't go out looking for it. Who's going to go out and look for a medical waste transfer point? I mean, it just doesn't happen, see.
But it did happen, and it happened on reservation land. So while Carleton County is set to provide a zone change and give the transfer site a green light to continue, tribal officials argue the site is under their jurisdiction and they should decide its fate.
Minorities and poor people across the country have traditionally gotten the brunt of environmental pollutants and waste, and that needs to change.
The story is not a new one for the reservation and those who make it their home.
At one time, it must have been the county wanted to buy 40 acres from me for a dump, and the Indians opposed it because I'm on the reservation, and so is this truck parked on reservation land.
Evelyn Ravel and others are now looking to tribal officials to stand up once again for their rights. On the Fond du Lac Reservation, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
Needs to be filled or get it as close as we can before March 15th. We need the material in there to level it, get our slopes, and so we figured we'd open it up to the people. All they have to do is get a pass down at the district. They come up with one load and dump it here free of charge. A lot of furniture, carpet, people remodeling, cupboards, a lot of remodeling material coming up here today.
This was the funeral procession for a Jewish settler who, on Friday, shot to death dozens of Arabs and unleashed a wave of violence in Israel. In response, Israeli cabinet ministers have approved strong measures to control Jewish settlers. The government will let the army restrict settlers' movements inside the occupied territories. It will disarm hardcore settlers, and it has called for the arrest of certain Jewish extremist leaders. One, Shmuel Ben Ishai, has already been arrested.
Let's be strong enough not to give in to terrorists on both sides who would like to put an end to the peace negotiations.
The government also has promised to release several hundred Palestinians currently in Israeli prisons. The PLO says these measures are not enough, and Arab anger continues to flare in a number of places. In a section of Tel Aviv, this was a second day of clashes between Palestinians and police. Some observers said police were provoking people. Officers reportedly forced their way into this house. This woman said she was there and was beaten with a baton. Most of the people expressing their anger here haven't yet heard of the Israeli government's plans to control extremist Jewish settlers. It will take time for word to spread and to see whether these measures are enough to ease tensions. In the meantime, the government intends to keep potentially violent Arabs and Jews apart from one another. Linda Vester, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
Well, can you tell us why you did it? Can you tell us what you were arguing about? It's a little.
What did you tell her?
I just told her that he's a very dangerous person, has been a dangerous person all of his life. Be very, very careful or you're going to get hurt.
Tell us why you did it. Tell us what you were arguing about. Has it been a fair trial so far, Mr. Little?
Why didn't Arnie have any money for the new medical school at Duluth, UMD? Why didn't he have any money for the Duluth Technical College? Why isn't there any money for the community college? Arnie Carlson's capital budget package and this surplus package is classic Arnie Carlson, narrowly crafted for his political base.
The entire setting for today's court appeal was new and different to all participants. An interactive video conference with the judges in St. Paul. The arguments, however, were the same as earlier proceedings. Attorneys for Operation Rescue and those local residents who continually picket the Women's Center believe their constitutional rights have been denied by a trial court's injunction.
The plaintiff's complaint did not ask for an injunction against religious blessing or praying. Their motion for a temporary injunction did, and the court granted that. It seems to me pretty clear that if anything is a violation of the First Amendment, that would be.
Women's Health Center Director Tina Welch attended today's hearing. In the past, she has been the main target of abortion protesters in Duluth, who have taken to picketing and protesting outside her residence. Welch has obtained numerous orders for protection, but the protesters have refused to back off.
And the judge found harassment against Ms. Welch, threats against Ms. Welch, intimidation of her, unauthorized photographing, following of her, professions of love, coming to her home, praying at her, and all forms of harassment by Mr. Johnson, Ms. Liebler, and defendant Overdahl, 3 of the defendants.
The appeals court has taken today's request to remove the injunction against further protest actions under advisement. In the meantime, the pickets continue, but under court-ordered guidelines setting certain restrictions to protect health center employees. In Duluth, Duke Skorich, News 6.
It makes this case almost startling in the absence of any discussion of what the factual context.
Tourism is now Northeast Minnesota's #1 industry. Statewide, travelers add $5 billion to our economy. People like to come to Minnesota in our region because we're friendly and we treat them well.
You know, 70% of the people that make a decision to go somewhere on a tourism vacation do so as a function of either previous experience or word of mouth. So you see that quality component coming through there.
Dr. Richard Perdue is considered a tourism expert, and today at UMD he told these marketing students the 3 most important ingredients to a successful business are service, service, and service. At Grandma's restaurant in Canal Park, all employees are instructed in the importance of the quality of their service. Without customer satisfaction, it's unlikely Grandma's would be enjoying its huge success. Like all of America, Northeast Minnesota's economy is turning more and more to the service sector, which now makes up 75% of the labor force. American families spend 45% of their budget on services. 85% of all new jobs in the last decade are service-oriented. But while the skills and demeanor of those who wait on us and our visitors are important, we all have a role to play in the tourism industry.
If residents support tourism and are welcoming and welcome tourists to their communities, that in fact the tourists will find that to be a more satisfying experience and will return.
It could be a major step toward eliminating the discharge of a known harmful pollutant into Lake Superior. During spring and summer, the Western Lake Superior Sanitary District uses chlorine to treat wastewater. After the chlorination process, a diluted form of chlorine is legally discharged into Lake Superior as part of the treated water.
We think it's a very good step to try to reduce the amount of chlorinated compounds that we are sending out into the bay.
When we're talking about chlorine, we're talking about persistent toxic substances. And the concerns are different than with the conventional pollutants.
WLSSD uses approximately 12,000 pounds of chlorine to treat roughly 43 million gallons of wastewater each day during what is called its chlorine variance months. A new experiment would cut the usage to under 1,000 pounds per day and require more frequent and stringent testing of the wastewater. The experiment begins June 20th with the increased testing and stringency standards.
We hope to look at this next year after June as the trial period.
And if no problems occur?
If no problems occur, then we would hope to add this on a regular basis to our discharge permit.
The WLSSD must first go through what is called a 30-day public review comment period before beginning the experiment. Once this passes, the Pollution Control Agency must then grant permission for the project to begin. In Duluth, John Jetta, News 6.
We did a straw poll on the criteria, just to see the intensity that allows the rates to reflect the cost. So not only our cost. What we have now is called an open system, where any hauler can go into any area. And that obviously creates a lot of the inefficiency. So we're suggesting that the city should be organized or zoned and allow only one hauler in one area, where the residents of that area would select the hauler. Advisory group. The second group, all getting about the same, was promoting recycling, customer choice, and high service quality. So those are the criteria, and again, most of the report you're going to hear tonight is going to be directed at those criteria, although we will talk about the other ones too, in terms of
Spring lovers in the Northland had an easy time recognizing their favorite season last Tuesday. With 50-degree temperatures and loads of sunshine, it wasn't hard. But the Northland is best known for monster snowstorms during March tournament time. Snowstorms that surprise everyone from everywhere, except here.
It won't last long at all. One thing about this, we know it's going to go away quick because we've had 7 months of this snow.
5 to 10 inches of falling snow and gusty winds snarled traffic around the Northland. Meanwhile, International Falls and Little Fork escaped what many spring lovers have titled the never-ending story by only receiving a trace of new snow. Twin Port residents definitely had their problems coping with this latest winter reminder.
Because my daughter was flying out from Duluth to go to Boston, and her flight was delayed, so we're a little concerned about that. But other than that, it doesn't bother me a bit. It's just Duluth.
This storm brings our March snowfall total to 10.2 inches. That's still more than 3 inches below normal with 1 week to go. So spring has decided to take a few days off. But this shouldn't come as a surprise to many Northland residents. After all, last summer could best be described as a leave of absence. In Duluth, I'm News 6 meteorologist John Jetta.
its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Overwhelming.
I can imagine.
Actually, it's a very efficient way of communicating.
It is often the case that children learn languages more easily than adults.
Aren't you going to mingle, Mr. Wolf?
I do not care for telepaths. They make me uneasy.
Hello. Hello. Pleased to meet you.
Yes. That is it. Pleased to meet you, Diana.
Good. Well, I'll just let you young people chat.
It's an opportunity to get women together, to talk about issues, to talk about fun things, and just to get out of the house and enjoy themselves.
I mentioned beautiful women.
Want these guys behind bars.
All new action-packed exclusive.
Hello, Mr. Nice Guy.
Brian Bloom is Bandit.
We're not against the IRRB and in the job the IRRB has to do, but we do object to this specific plan of a golf course condominium project being put in this specific area.
Just beans.
Learned that there was only 2 people on the ice, 2 ice fishermen. They'd been inside of their ice fishing house and hadn't noticed what was going on around them. And when they noticed their lines were going in towards shore under the ice, they figured something was wrong. So when they came out of their house, they noticed the open gap between themselves and the shore, the water.
A witness or a passerby that came shortly after the stabbing, saw the victim and the perpetrator with the knife in his hand, took the knife from the perpetrator, and then went, locked him out of the apartment and ran to a gas station and called.
For 5 years now, the Bayfront Blues Festival has drawn people to the Northland and Northlanders to blues. But if you're planning to attend this year's event, you'll need more than an appreciation for blues to get past the gates. You'll need $12.
One of the risks that you run when you do have a free event, besides not having any revenue, is the fact that, you know, after a while, you start to attract a whole bunch of people that aren't necessarily there for the reason that you initially created the event, and that's party.
Blues Fest organizers say the attendance fee will provide more money for bigger stars and less pressure to keep the festival in the black.
And it will, again, help reduce our risks and the risk for the community. It'll make this a more stable event. It'll plot the future of the Bayfront Blues Festival for many years to come.
While ticket revenues may provide a more stable financial footing for Blues Fest, the future side of the festival is up in the air. Promoters say next year's event could be held across the bridge in Superior. An agreement with the city of Duluth keeps the festival at Bayfront Park this year, but a disagreement over requested funds from the city may send Blues Fest to Wisconsin. The festival's producers requested financial support, but city officials questioned the legality of giving money to a for-profit corporation. In the end, the $12 attendance fee should ensure a financial success for the festival. even if the weather decides not to cooperate.
Worried about weather? You darn right we're worried about weather. You have to be worried about weather. You have to be half crazy to be outdoor event promoters in this part of the country.
In Duluth, Stephanie Guardian, News 6.
The President of the United States, Bill Clinton.
Today's noon-hour rally at the IDS Crystal Court was sponsored by the Minnesota Nurses Association. As an invitation-only event, the president was assured this would be a friendly crowd. Several times, the president thanked the nurses for their support of his proposed changes in the nation's system of health care delivery.
For decades and decades, the American people have been denied something that every other advanced country provides to its citizens: the security of knowing that they have good health care that is always there. Every other country with which we compete with an advanced economy has solved this problem. Only the United States, time after time after time after time, has found it impossible to do.
There are 37 million Americans without health insurance, and several times the president asked the thousands listening not to forget them. He reminded the audience that circumstances beyond their control could someday leave them in the same condition.
People should have insurance that they can never lose, not when they change jobs, not when they get sick, not when they're self-employed, and not when they get older. And they should have insurance that provides the right to choose their health care providers. There's not a single solitary proposal in the Congress that would have the government take over the health care providers of this country. And don't you believe that? And for all the people who tell you that if we reform health care, it will make it more bureaucratic, let me just ask you, go talk to one doctor and ask a doctor how much time the people
something? TV? You are?
The winners here go on to our districts down in Minneapolis, or the winner from that will then go to the regionals in Chicago.
Covered anything that they thought that would be a value to the tenants. So thanks to them, the tenants have something to move out without their caring and stuff. And that's not that they didn't have enough to do trying to fight the fire, but then to take and cover, care enough about covering people's furniture. It just shows a real caring fire department.
Barry Manilow has performed in sold-out theaters and arenas across the country since his first album in 1973. But this time around, his performance will include a local connection. Choir members from Duluth-Denfeld High School have been chosen to back Manilow during his concert at the Duluth Convention and Entertainment Center tomorrow night. The thrilling concept of backing a big-time performer has those involved excited and ready for the challenge.
At first I thought he was just joking with us. I didn't think anything like that would happen, and I think it's a real compliment that Solid Gold got to do something like this.
The 28 members from Denfeld's musical groups Solid Gold and Stepping Up will lend their backup support for 3 of Manilow's hits, including the famous I Write the Songs. The teens and their instructor did not receive a great deal of time to prepare for the challenge, but according to choir director Mark Overland, they adapted well.
We got the music right before Easter break, and the students left on Easter break for a week with the tapes of the show and the music, and their assignment was to come back and have it learned, and they did. And I was very proud of them. They knew the music when they came back in. We've only had 3 rehearsals.
Even though most of the high schoolers involved do not own Barry Manilow tapes or CDs, they have heard of the legendary performer.
I've heard him before. I don't actually own anything of his, but I've heard him before on some of my mom's CDs and that.
The students will not receive any direct money. However, a monetary contribution will be made to help fund their upcoming choir trip to Minneapolis.
I write the songs and make the young girls cry. I write the songs, I write the... Listen to the music I am.
In Duluth, John Jetta, News 6.
Let it go. Music. Listen to the music I am, the music. Music fills your soul. Let it go. Listen to the music I am, the music. Music. I don't know which way we'll do it.
Piedmont Avenue has a history of deep scars. Residents along the avenue from Trinity Road to where Piedmont turns sharply left at 23rd will tell you all about the obstructed views, the dangerous driving, and the large trucks with faulty brakes. Even an unfortunate accident resulting in death.
And this kid swung out. He said he couldn't see on account of the sun, so he swung and he caught him by the legs. And when he stopped up here, my husband went flying over the car.
Ann Talega's husband died in 1984, but a 1991 accident involving a fish truck ramming into a gas station is what prompted the Minnesota Department of Transportation to seriously look into the problems facing Piedmont Avenue.
The traffic here is getting worse and worse since the mall went in, you know, and it's something had to be done. Should have been done years ago.
The DOT is purchasing homes along Piedmont Avenue, currently demolishing those that pose the greatest danger.
This will all lead to the reconstruction of Piedmont Avenue from, I believe, 5th Street on up to the 5 corners.
The total cost of the entire project is approximately $10 million, and due to recent financial cutbacks on the federal level, the Piedmont project is not included in the 3-year Department of Transportation budget. But area residents are optimistic.
Well, I think it's great what they're doing now, if they ever get it completed, as far as traffic and all that. Anything is going to be better than what we've got. There's an awful lot of traffic on this Piedmont.
In West Duluth, John Jetta, News 6.
Right on the curb, and they give me the dimension.
It's going to be four stories high. Windows. Windows.
So he was kind of touching it, arms away from her. He kind of guided me to the bed, the table. And
you don't recall having your leg up and pushing against him and pulling?
Yes, no.
You know if he was holding it or if it was still?
Up in the air, and then
She said that she grabbed for the gun and had her fingers in the trigger mechanism, and that she was trying to point the weapon toward him. He was trying to point it away from him, and that's how the struggle occurred.
You weren't real interested in that doesn't necessarily convince the guy. During the course of your conversation with Jamie, he related an incident to you when he was a little boy and witnessed his mother shoot and kill his father, didn't he?
Yes.
He also related to you incidents regarding his marriage and the breakdown of his marriage and how he ultimately filed for divorce.
That's correct.
He also talked to you very emotionally about his son and his feelings regarding his separation from his son, didn't he?
Swept up with it. Could have an address. You know, when I first moved out here, we lived over on
asbestos is what we call preform or mag asbestos, and we note that it's dry, that it
Ready.
After 10 years of battling the court system, a legal victory brings women boxers from outside to inside the ring. Women like Jeannie Fleck. Jeannie is a 29-year-old hairstylist, but for the past couple of years, she's been busy trading haircuts for uppercuts.
I think it's a great sport for women. I don't think that people get as hurt as they think they do. It's pretty controlled. It's a great way to stay in shape.
And exactly how does this mother of two stay in shape? Just ask one of her coaches.
5 rounds of shadow boxing, 5 rounds of heavy bag, 5 rounds on the speed bag, 5 rounds on the double end bag, and a lot of sit-ups and stuff like that. Usually an hour and a half, 4 times a week, of very strenuous exercise.
Jeannie got her start in martial arts. She's a black belt in karate and ranked 4th nationally in the light middleweight women's division. But it is in the boxing ring she hopes to make her mark.
I'm hoping that they extend it to Golden Gloves for women and maybe someday into the Olympics for women, because there's a lot of young girls out there that are just as tough as the boys.
And Jeannie's had plenty of opportunity to prove that. Up until now, her sparring partners have mostly been men.
Initially, I think they feel I'm going to be an easy fight, but I don't like to lose.
There you go. Thanks a lot. Oh no, I just messed up.
They're back, all the runners that were forced indoors this winter by the harsh weather. Just getting back into it. How are you doing? Okay, feeling good. How do you feel? Not too good, but I'm pushing myself. Okay, I'm one of them too.
Two things we want to do is make sure you're flexible and make sure your tissues are strong enough. And by doing a good stretching program, we can accomplish those things.
Okay. Stretching, one of the most important things to remember before heading out the door.
This is one of the tightest areas that if that can't give, you're going to be prone to some injuries.
Taking just 15 minutes to stretch the ankle, calf, and hamstring muscles before running will cut down on injuries. So we'll starting back slowly.
You don't start off running out buying those new sneakers and jogging 3 miles the first day. Get out there and go for a brisk walk, about half a mile. Then do the stretches, some of like we're demonstrating here. And then run for a quarter of a mile, easy pace, maybe half a mile, depending on your conditioning. Then stop and walk for that same distance.
And if something hurts, slow down. No pain, no gain can lead to trouble.
Why don't you hop up on the table, take a look at your foot.
Judy St. Hilaire is a world-class runner and no stranger to injuries. To help avoid more,
I have to stretch thoroughly, especially as I get older. I'm not as flexible as I used to be.
Get out there and enjoy it, but start a little slow. Allow the body to build up so it can tolerate what you're asking from it, and then have a lot of fun.
Yeah, fun. I'll try to remember that part until I'm used to this again. It really was a long winter. For NBC News, I'm Lauren Scott.
But recreation's a big part, and we thank you so much.
We thank you. It's a pleasure to do it. Hats off to these folks here. They're like to do it. Let's go. Need some people. Jerry, BNS. Come on, you're an A. You BNS.
Give me an S! Give me an A! Give me an M! Give me a woo! Woo! Give me an F! What's that spell? Who's number one?
At the Miller Hill Mall, and we have at least 15 exhibitors who have displays and educational materials for people to take advantage of, to learn things about the environment, to learn things about new technologies in energy and environmental related areas.
And what we do is to raise funds to provide goods for and services for children living in poverty in Duluth so that they can have some of the advantages that they deserve and to help to motivate them to do well in school and to get out of poverty.